and then I'll share my screen. So here we go. So the words that you were suggesting were suggest, recommend, and what was the third one, Ilham?
Offer.
Offer?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So offer is quite distinct from the other two. So let's deal this in two parts. I'll talk about these two words here, and then I'll talk about offer and how offer is different. Right, suggest. Suggest, I'll give you Alan's definition first, right? Just what comes to my mind. And then after that, we'll take a look at what the web says, okay? So suggest. Suggest is when one person says something to someone else to give them an idea, okay? It's not necessarily to do with a product. It can be anything. So I could say, Elham, I suggest, you seem quite stressed. You need a holiday. So I suggest you take a holiday, right? So I'm making a suggestion to you there. Or we could be going out for a meal and it's in Tehran and I've never eaten any food from that region. And I could say to you, we're looking at the menu on the restaurant and I say, I have no idea. What would you suggest? So now I'm asking you to make a suggestion to me, right? So that's a suggest, what suggest means. Now recommend is almost identical, right? I could say, do you have any recommendations? And I'm meaning the same thing. Do you have any recommendations of things on this menu? Now, let me just check in with Trishani. Trishani, am I speaking at a speed that you understand? Or am I speaking too fast for you?
I can understand you.
Okay, good. So feel free to slow me down, interrupt, put your hand up, the wee symbol, put your hand up in the app and say to me, slow down if you don't get anything or if you need me to repeat anything. Okay? Because you and Fabiola both speak English, but obviously you've got Spanish background. Elham has been in my class since about May last year. So she's very experienced and very good. Okay, so it might be easier for her to understand things than you guys. So it's important you don't lose out. I'm happy to slow down. Okay. So suggest and recommend mean pretty much the same thing. That's a good idea, Alan. I will go on vacation. Where would you recommend? Or where would you suggest? That's asking the same thing. Yeah. So suggest and recommend. I actually can't think of any difference between them at the moment. Very, very similar. I can actually think of some differences, but we'll maybe come back to that. Offer is different. Offer is when one person offers something to somebody else, right? They offer. So,
Teacher, excuse me.
Yeah.
Could you repeat the difference of subject and offer?
Yeah, yeah. I'm just about to explain. I haven't really explained it yet. I'm just about to say. Offer, I've said, is different. And it's where, let's say I came to Costa Rica you might offer to take me around and show me the sights. Does that make sense? You might offer, right? Okay. I can't ask that. It's where one person of their own will offers something to somebody else. So you might offer.
It's like a person to buy something.
It could be to buy. It could be. It could be to buy, but it could also be any kind of an offer, right? It's where one person is giving something to somebody else. So for example, I could offer to sell you my motorcycle, right? I could offer, would you be interested in my motorcycle? It's lovely and green and it's very fast. I'll show you what my motorcycle looks like. So if I go here and go here, jingoism is a word we might do in a little bit. I'll say ZX12R green. There you go. This is what my motorcycle looks like. Do you like it? Would you like to buy it?
Yes.
So I could offer to sell you my motorcycle. And I could say, I don't know what the currency is in Costa Rica, but let's say I could offer to sell it to you for $10,000. You fancy that? And you might say, no, that's way too expensive. Okay. I'm only kidding you on, I'm only pretending I would sell it to you for $3,000. Now do you fancy it? See? So the point there is I am offering my motorcycle to you. Alternatively, you could say, Alan, I would like to make you an offer for your motorcycle. And I would say, okay, make me an offer then. What do you think? And you might say, $1,000. And I would say, no. That's too cheap. I need more than that, right? You need to give me more. Give me $4,000. And you say, no, that's too expensive. Okay. And you said, okay, well, how about this then? I'll give you $3,000 final offer. That's a big expression, a common expression in English. Final offer. In other words, I won't offer any more than that. That's my top limit, right? $3,000. What do you think? And I would say, okay, let's do the deal, right? So that's what offer means. Offer is normally to do with money and a transaction, but it could also be to do with assistance. So you might offer to help me learn Spanish. You might offer. Or I might request it. I might say to Chushani, I really wish Chushani would offer to help me with my Spanish. You see? Offer. So offer is where one person is wanting to help either give something to somebody else or make a financial transaction with somebody else. So offer is quite different from the two words we were talking about before, which was suggest and recommendation. Now I'm going to pause there and see, does all that make sense, or are there any questions? And what I'll do next is we'll look up these words on the web for the definition in the web to see if there's any things that are mentioned there which I have missed out.
In Spanish, okay. In Spanish, say oferta.
Okay. Okay.
And Alan, would you please tell me where does advice stands between these three words?
Where does what stand?
Advice.
Advice. Yes. So first of all, there's a difference between advise and advice. Okay, these are two different words.
Yeah.
Okay, I could offer you advice to link that with what we were saying before, right? I could offer you advice. If you were coming to Britain, you might say, I've never been there before. What sites should I see? And I would say, well, I can give you some advice on that, or offer you advice on the things to see. So offer advice. So advice is the name of the thing that you're giving, right? Which is some recommendations. Advise is the verb. Advice is the noun. But advise is, Elham advised me not to come to Tehran. Or Elham advised me, it's okay, it's safe to come to Iran. I'll show you around, Alan. I'll show you the sites. Does that make sense? You see?
Yeah.
So that's advise and advice. And the difference is in the pronunciation. Advice, advice, and advise, vise.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So let's just look up the other words. Define. Recommend. To put forward someone or something with approval as being suitable for a particular purpose or role. George had recommended some local architects. Archaic. Commend or entrust someone to something else. I devoutly recommended my spirit to its maker. So that's saying recommend. In olden times, it had the same meaning as commend. We'll ignore that, right? So basically, to put forward someone with approval as being suitable for a particular purpose or role. Okay, that's what recommend means. Suggest. I put forward for consideration. I suggest that we wait a day or two. To cause one to think that something exists or is the case. Finds of lead Finds of lead coffins suggest a cemetery north of the river. State or express indirectly. Are you suggesting that we should ignore her? See that? That's a good use of the word there. Are you suggesting? So it's not being very explicit. It's being sort of a little bit indirect. Evoke. The theatrical interpretation of weather and water almost suggests El Greco, i.e. it's kind of like hinting or something of an idea that comes into one's mind. A simpler explanation suggested itself to me. Okay, so that's suggest and recommend. Is everybody comfortable with all of that? Recommend is less formal, more personal. Advise is more a formal verb. It is used in corresponding situations when one person gets direction of some sort of professional, doctor or a teacher or superior person, a manager or government official. Suggest is the less formal of all three. You use it when talking about ideas, opinions. So that's quite good. I don't know if I could have, I could not have articulated that so clearly. So the words are all basically saying the same thing, but they're coming down in formality. Advise being the most formal, recommend less formal, and suggest is the least formal. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions before we move on? Right, the next word I want to look at then is the word bigot. I came across this today and I thought, oh, my class might know what that means. Does anybody know what a bigot is? Don't read the screen. Just tell me if you know what it means. A bigot. No. Okay, so this is a good word to know. Let's play it. Can you hear that? Because I've got headphones on, you might hear it. Can you hear that or not?
No.
No, okay. So it's bigot, bigot, bigot. So what is a bigot? Is a person who is obstinately or unreasonably attached to a belief, opinion, or faction, especially one who is prejudiced against or antagonistic towards a person or people on the basis of their membership of a particular group. Don't let a few small-minded bigots destroy the good image of the city. So that definition there is what I would call a bit of a mouthful. I defined mouthful last week, I think, or the week before, a mouthful. There's a lot in it. But basically what it's saying is if somebody is of a very strong opinion about something, right? And they're not open to challenge, they're not open-minded, that person is a bigot. Now, we have certainly had plenty of bigots in the UK. I'm sure you've got bigots in your countries, respectively. You know the sort of person I mean. And not really the kind of person you want to be friends with. A bigot. Is everybody comfortable with that? Yeah, yeah. Let's look at a sentence. And bigot in a sentence. James was not a mere tyrant and bigot, as the popular imagination speedily assumed him to be. He was not a bigot, but he was not fair to all the people. Ranuccio was a reserved and gloomy bigot. He instituted savage persecutions against supposed witches and heretics and lived in perpetual terror of plots. They misunderstand the old man in the shop. They assume to be who they assume to be a redneck bigot. Now, redneck is an American word. We don't use that in the UK. Do you know what a redneck is?
No, teacher.
No, okay. So a redneck would be somebody who's a manual worker and typically describes somebody, you know, who would work in an oil rig. Very physical, sweaty. They call those people rednecks because their neck gets red and their face gets red and hot, right? A redneck. I'll look it up in a moment. The person who stands proclaiming to know the truth is often called a bigot, right? So being a bigot doesn't mean you're wrong, right? But the point is you're not open to challenge. And that's a very uncomplimentary thing. So you don't want to be a bigot and you don't want to be friends with bigots. Is everybody clear what a bigot is now?
Yes.
Okay. So let's look up redneck, which we came across by pure serendipity there. Redneck. A working class white person from the southern US, especially a politically reactionary one, redneck towns. There you go. So very much an American word, right? So, you know the Trump supporters? They're rednecks, a lot of them, right? Right? Not very educated, not very smart, but very politically strong-minded, right? And they're typically working class and white, right? Right. That's a redneck. Let's look at what Wikipedia says. A derogatory term, so derogatory means negative, right? You're putting down, but not exclusively applied to white Americans, perceived to be crass and unsophisticated, closely associated with rural whites of the southern United States. Its meaning stems from the sunburn found on farmers' necks dating back to the late 19th century. Its usage is similar in meaning to cracker or hillbilly regarding Appalachia and Ozarks, and white trash, but without the last term suggestion of immorality. In Britain, that's interesting, the Cambridge Dictionary definition states, a poor white person without education, especially one living in the countryside of the southern US, who is believed to have prejudiced ideas and beliefs. This word is usually considered offensive. People from the white South sometimes jocularly call themselves rednecks as inside humor. Okay, so the redneck bit has got to do with sunburn. It isn't got to do with hot from working hard. I'd misunderstood that. But we've got it, right? So these are particularly American terms. We don't say these things in Britain, but we know what a redneck is. It's a particular kind of person that seems to abound in America, right? White trash is very common. Yeah, white trash. I haven't heard the term cracker before. Poor rural whites. Okay, we all know what a redneck is?
Yes.
Okay. Now I'm going to get to a list of words I wanted to teach you guys. And the first word I want to teach you tonight is avouch. Has anyone heard this word before? Avouch.
No.
Okay. So avouch is affirm or assert. The locket contained ringlets, which he avouched to be relics of a Spanish girl. Right. So what you're doing when you avouch something is you're saying it's true, right? Alan, would you avouch that Fabi speaks Spanish? Absolutely. I've heard her. Yeah, she's fluent. She's a native Spanish speaker. So I would avouch that, right? In other words, I confirm it. I affirm it. I assert that's true. Avouch. So let's look at avouch in a sentence. I can avouch that he's a good violin player because I've seen him practice for years. She asked him to recommend her for the job since he could avouch for her excellent character. He could avouch for Rachel's story, so the judge asked him to come to the witness stand. Avouch.
Teacher,
Yes, Fabi.
about is like affirmation. No.
It's like what? What word did you say there?
Affirmation?
Affirmation. Correct. Absolutely. 100%. Yep. You got it.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I affirm or I vouch. Means the same thing. Okay. So that's a new word for you guys. Right, next word I want to teach you is deference. What does deference mean? Anyone want to explain deference? It's polite submission and respect. So you guys all give me a lot of deference as the teacher of this class, right? It's polite submission and respect. I'm not used to this in ordinary life, but you guys all give it to me and I quite enjoy it. Because you all call me sir or teacher or some other term of respect, but nobody in real life calls me that. They just call me Alan. And I'm very happy if you guys call me Alan, but you seem to insist on giving me titles, right? So that behavior is called deference. So normally children would be deferent to their parents. And in the workplace, people are normally deferent to their boss. And the public would normally be deferent to celebrities because they would see them as somehow better than them. Not that they're not, but people think that just because they're rich and famous. Deference. Is that clear? You can put your hand down now, Fabi.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Cool. Right, so that's avouch and deference. Next term, I know some of you know because I say it a lot and you'll have heard me say it. And that is the term, I will say it before I write it because as soon as I write it, Google just pops up the meaning and you can just read it. You'll hear me say this a lot, much obliged. I'm much obliged. So I would say that after you've done something for me, I might say, I'm much obliged. What does it mean, Ilham?
Thanks a lot.
Yes, exactly. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. It's a kind of polite way of saying it and slightly stronger statement. Like if you bought me a coffee, I would say thanks, right? But if you bought my dinner, I might say I'm much obliged to you, right? So I'm making a bigger thing of it. I'm much obliged, right? I could also put this in a statement like this. I could say, I would be really obliged if you could come with me to the dance because I don't have a partner. I would be really obliged. So what I mean is I would be really thankful. And I promise you to get you home before midnight in case you turn into a pumpkin. What's that a reference to? Who turns into a pumpkin at 12 o'clock? Do you know the story of Cinderella?
Yeah, the Cinderella.
Yeah, that's right.
Witch?
It was not the fairy godmother
Yeah.
to give her the beautiful dress and made her all beautiful, and she had to get back by 12 o'clock, otherwise she would turn into a pumpkin or something like that. Yeah, right. So just a bit of fun there. So that's much obliged, much obliged. Right, let's just look it up now. Let's see what the web says. To be much obliged is to be thankful, grateful, appreciative, in someone's debt. Idiom, much obliged in answer to someone means thank you. Often to be much obliged is followed or preceded by a clause starting with if. I'd be much obliged if you could fax me the reports over to blah, blah, blah. Yeah, much obliged. So it's a good term to know so that you know how to be thankful you would use it in speech. You wouldn't write it down typically. You could do it in a text, a WhatsApp or something. You could say, "Oh, much obliged." Yeah. Okay. Here's a good word. Okay, it's telling me what it means as I write it in. The word abysmal. Has anyone heard of that before? Abysmal. No? Abysmal.
No.
Okay. So abysmal means extremely bad or appalling. And you can think of it as coming from the word abyss. Do you know what an abyss is? It's a good way to remember it. An abyss. An abyss is an immeasurably deep gulf or great space gazing down into the gaping abyss. The ocean's abysses, figurative, a widening abyss between the rich and the poor. So it's like a gulf, yeah? So let's look at abyss in an image and then you'll see it, right? So the problem is when there's a movie called Abyss, then you get all this nonsense coming up. Okay, so it's, you can see how they're trying to represent it here. It's basically really deep, right? An abyss, like a hole. That's what an abyss is, yeah? So the deep parts of the sea, or you could have an abyss in land, you know, between two sort of a gulf. It's like a gulf. So coming back to abysmal. So abysmal is something you think of, it's very low. It's at the very low point of something. If you think of a graph coming down and then back up again, the very bottom bit, that's the abyss. While I'm here, I'm also thinking of another word that means something similar, which is the nadir. You won't know that word, nadir. The nadir is the lowest point or unsuccessful point in a situation. Asking that question was the nadir of my career, right? The very low point of my career, right? The nadir. And that picture doesn't really sort of help. The direction pointing directly below a particular location. It is one of two vertical directions. That's not really helpful. So the nadir is the low point. So if I did a sine wave, okay. So here's a sine wave. So this here, this point where I'm pointing at, that is the nadir, right? The low point is the nadir. And this would be the apex, right? Or the summit. You think of it like a hill, a summit of a mountain, the summit of the hill, the summit, apex. Nadir, the low point. The lowest level, the bottom, as low as one can get, rock bottom, the depths, zero, the pits. The pits. What's the situation like? It's the pits, it's the pits, right? If we say the pits, we just mean it's like, it's just terrible, right? So if I was speaking to somebody in Ukraine, I say, what's the situation like? They could say it's the pits, right? It's really, 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 really bad, right? Okay. So abysmal, nadir, these are all in the same ballpark. And out of that, I want to teach you another word, which is egregious. Egregious. Now, egregious means, listen for this, conspicuously bad. So what is the situation like in Ukraine? It's egregious, right? It's not bad. It's conspicuously bad. It's really, really bad, right? It's really, really terrible. Outstandingly bad, shocking, egregious abuses of copyright. Archaic, it means good. How weird is that? How weird is English? That words flip meanings over the years, right? So egregious used to mean good, but now it means really, 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 really bad. As bad as it can get. So other synonyms: shocking, appalling, horrific, horrible, terrible, awful, hideous, horrendous, frightful, monstrous, outrageous, abhorrent, unspeakable, shameful, flagrant, glaring, unforgivable, unpardonable, intolerable. You get the idea. So egregious, egregious. This would not be a common word, right? Not super common. But you would certainly read it in the newspaper. Okay, everybody got that? Right, now I'm going to teach you an expression. What does this mean? Does everybody know what stressed means? What am I if I'm stressed?
Anxious?
Anxious, yes. But probably more than just anxious.
Yeah, under
right?
an emotional pressure.
Yes, yes. And so the expression I want to teach you is stressed out of my box. Have you heard that expression before?
No.
No. Okay, so this is a common expression here. How you doing, Alan? I'm stressed out of my box. Oh, really? Yeah, it's terrible. I can't sleep at night. Oh, what are you stressed about? Oh, it's my boss. He's an absolute ogre. I think he's going to fire me. So I'm stressed out of my box, right? That's a very formal definition we're getting into there. I don't want that. Stressed out is a kind of shortened form, right? I am stressed out. Okay. Okay. So I hope none of you are stressed out of your box. A little bit of stress is good, but too much stress is bad. Bad for our health, bad for our mental health, makes you age. Stress is not good. Too much stress. All right. Here's another expression. What would I mean if I said this? I'll check in with you. What does that mean? I'll check in with you. What does that mean?
Like I ask you the news about a particular subject? Could
be. Yeah. 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 What it means is it depends on the context, but it means I'm going to check on you and make sure you're okay, basically, right? Hey, I could say, hey, Alham, I'll check in with you tomorrow. Is that okay? If you phone me up and you said, Alan, can I have a chat? And I could say, no, I can't. I'm really busy just now, but can I check in with you tomorrow? I'll check in with you tomorrow. It means I'll phone you back, right? So check in. It's where you're going to have a conversation, and I'm not checking up on you. That's different. To check up on someone is to make sure they're doing what they should be doing. So a parent might check up on their child, right? Or a boss might check up on an employee. Are they doing their job? Are they working hard? Are they making a contribution? I'll check up. But to check in is different. To check in is friendly, it's warm. I'm making sure you're okay. So let's see what the web says. Check in with you later. So this is US informal. To talk with someone in order to report or find out new information. I have to go to a meeting now. I'll check in with you later, right? I'll check in with you later, right? I might have thought it might give me a few more examples than that. I'll check in with him when we get back. I will check in to get a pulse out of the employees, and I'll sometimes make comments or explain what's going on. Going forward, I will check in with you midway so that you can give me a heads up. So heads up is another American expression, right? It's another Americanism. Heads up. And it's to tell you something ahead of time. Give me a heads up. Yeah. Heads up. I think I can guess where it comes from. I think it comes from American football, but let's look it up to be safe, be sure. Advance warning of something. The heads up came just in time to stop the tanks from launching the final assault. You think that was just changed because of the news this week, right? So it's advance warning of something. The people in Ukraine were giving everybody a heads up that an invasion was imminent. A heads up. We normally say a heads up. Oh, adjective, interesting. Showing alertness or perceptiveness. They played a very heads up game. Right. So it's the idea of awareness. Think of an animal that lifts its head up when it's feeding its heads down. It's eating the grass or something. But when it hears a noise and it wants to see what's happening, it sticks its head up and it points its ears, doesn't it? So think of an animal. I'm guessing that's the etymology. I don't really know. No. A warning of something is going to happen, usually so that you can prepare for it. Okay. So we now know what a heads up is. Right, here is a good word, ridicule. What does ridicule mean?
Making fun out of something.
Yes, not out of something. Yeah, it could be something, but it's normally of someone, right? It would be very unkind of me to ridicule you for your accent. right? So if I ridicule you, I am making fun of you, but not in a friendly way. I'm doing it to put you down, to ridicule you.
Yeah.
Unkind words or actions to make someone or something look stupid. She was treated with scorn and ridicule by her colleagues when she applied for the job. He's become an object of ridicule equals a person that everyone thinks is stupid and criticizes or laughs at. So to ridicule is very bad behavior to ridicule somebody, right? It's never, ever acceptable, but it still happens. Ridicule. Does anyone practice saying it? Come off mute and say it for me, Fabi. Ridicule, ridicule. It's not really cool. It's really it's like a Q rather than a C. Ridicule, ridicule. Do you want to say it, Fabi? Let me hear your pronunciation. Okay. Trishani, do you want to have a go?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Ridicule.
Yes, you're nearly there, but it sounded like really cool. It's almost like you want to say it like this. Ready? Instead of saying C-U, think of Q-U-L-E. Really see that? Cool. Ridicule. Say it again.
Ridicule.
Yes, that's it. Excellent. Elham, have a go.
Ridicule.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Fabi, you there, dear? You want to say it?
Yes, teacher.
Say ridicule for me. So now I'm going to ridicule Fabi for the noise in her background.
Sorry, professor. In this moment, I have class the aesthetic, or I don't know, say aesthetic medicine.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Do you want to have a go at saying ridicule?
But I hear you.
All right. All right. That's fine. Right. Now, here's another word I'm going to teach you. This is a lovely word. This is one of my favorite words. Winsome. Winsome. What does winsome mean? Anyone? No. Okay.
Winsome is like attractive or
Yes.
beautiful. Or,
exactly. Fabi is a real winsome character, right? And you can think of it as like you win some people by your looks or your attitude, you know. I can still remember the book I read it. It was a story written by Chuck Colson, who was involved in the Watergate, and he's describing his wife, who he met, who was a secretary in the White House, and he described he said she had a winsome smile, right? A winsome smile. And I remember thinking, that's a lovely word. I don't know that word. And I looked it up in a dictionary, because back in the day, when I was a boy, we looked up words in dictionaries. And I thought, that is a lovely, lovely word, right? Winsome. It sounds nice and it describes something nice. Winsome. Right. Attractive and pleasing with simple qualities, sometimes like those a child has. Maria brought along her eldest daughter, a winsome girl with brown eyes and a ready smile. So if I described you as winsome, it would be a very high compliment. Okay? Winsome. Okay, here is a great expression, which I'm guessing you won't know. Mark my words. Does anyone know what this means? It's idiom.
No.
No, okay. Right. Mark my words means pay attention to what I've just said. Right? Pay attention to what I've just said. In other words, mark my words. You know, if you were marking something when you're writing it down, you would mark it with a red pen, underline it. Yeah? If something's important, you underline it, or you highlight it in yellow, the highlighter. You know, when we're not using computers, when we're using old-fashioned pen and paper, you mark words by underlining or circling or highlighting in yellow, right? Now, if I'm speaking to you and I say something that I think is important, I might say to you, mark my words, right? So for example, I might say, you see this invasion of Ukraine, I think it's the beginning of World War III. Mark my words. So I've just said something that I think is important, and so I am saying to you, I want you to really pay attention to what I've just said. Mark my words. Mark my words. You could also, you often say it like I've just done. You make the statement and then you say, mark my words. Or you can do the opposite. You can say, mark my words, and then the statement. So for example, I might say this, mark my words, that guy Putin is an absolute megalomaniac. Mark my words, that guy Putin is an absolute megalomaniac, right? So I'm saying to you, I'm signposting before I've said it, and then I've made the statement. Mark my words. Now, there was a famous guy in America, he's an author, who lived in the 1800s, and his name was Mark Twain. And he wrote some famous books. Anybody name any of his books?
Yeah.
What? Name one.
I think I remember the Huckleberry Finn.
Exactly, Huckleberry Finn. Or Tom Sawyer, right? Which were very pleasant stories of young boys in America in the deep South, when there were steamboats and things like that. Nice stories. Now, that wasn't his real name though, right? That wasn't his real. Mark Twain was his pseudonym, you know, that he used when he's publishing books. Like, you know, his real name was Samuel, I can't remember, Samuel something. Anyway, he wrote a book of his quotes, and he called the book Mark My Words. Is that not clever? So in other words, I'm called Mark my words. See that? And I bought a copy of this in Connecticut, in Hartford, in his house. His house has been turned into a kind of museum, and I've been to visit it 20 odd years ago. And I bought that book. I've still got that book. Next time I'm having class in my house as opposed to in the office, I will look out that book and I'll show you the cover. It's very good. It's full of witty quotes. He's the guy who famously said, rumors of my death have been greatly exaggerated. Have you ever heard that one? Have you ever heard that? Rumors of my death have been greatly exaggerated. No, you never heard that? No?
No.
That's a very famous quote, right? Rumors of my death have been greatly exaggerated, right? Now, this is funny because obviously, like, the idea of greatly exaggerating is something is getting worse, right? Or is, you know, but, you know, death is a binary thing. You're either dead or you're not. You're not, yeah. So you're either dead or you're not. So there was rumors that he had died. He was actually in Britain. He had traveled to Britain because he was poor. He ended up poor. And he traveled to Britain to make speeches to earn some money. And it got out in the press that he had died, right? but he hadn't died. And so he then spoke to the press and said, rumors of my death have been greatly exaggerated. And that's a very clever, a very witty thing to say. And he is famous for that statement, right? Or reports of my death. Reports of my death have been greatly is a popular misquote attributed to Samuel Clemens, known by his pen name, Mark Twain. The humorous quote is based on the letter Twain sent to a newspaper reporter who had asked Twain about rumors that he was dying. Although it's not an accurate quote, the reports of my death are greatly exaggerated remains associated with Twain. So I didn't know it wasn't. Everybody thinks it is associated. Twain was known for his humor, which the quote perfectly represents. Often this quote is brought up to praise Twain's skill as a humorist. The reports of my death are greatly exaggerated is often used humorously to humorously comment on a person's absence from society or to refer to something that appears dead or hopeless but still has a slim chance of success. Okay? Right, so we do say this, we do borrow this expression and use it, you know. Like somebody might say, hey, Alan, I've heard you resigned from work. And if it's not true, I might say, well, reports of my resignation have been greatly exaggerated, right? Because it's not true. So English is full of these kind of quotes. And the most famous ones you will get to know in time as you read English and as you talk to people who speak English, etc., etc. Hey, Alan, I heard you were giving up your English lessons. Well, I can tell you categorically that reports of my demise are greatly exaggerated because I'm very much still doing them. Sometimes I can't do them some weeks because I'm busy with work and other things, but I've been doing it since last May. So that's 8 months and I'm enjoying it and still doing it. Okay, has everybody got that? Comfortable with that? Well, we didn't do that many words today, but we're over time.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Who was speaking there? Somebody said something. Fabi or Trishani, were you saying something? No? Okay, well.
No, teacher.
Yeah, you seem to be coming off mute briefly and then going straight back onto mute again. I don't know if that's deliberate or accidental. Okay, no worries. Right, I will stop sharing screen and we'll end the class there. Next class will be Sunday, if you're free. Now, it's early in the morning, so you guys in Costa Rica won't make it. It's 8 o'clock in the morning, so it's too early for you guys. That would be about midnight for you, so it's too late. So you can join if you want. And you will see the recording. I put the recording on the group, so you can always listen to it if you're interested. Okay, so I will bid you adieu.
Thank you, teacher.
I will bid you adieu, the French term for bye-bye. And in Spanish, you would say adios. Isn't that right? Adios.
Ciao.
Ciao. Ciao. All right. Thank you for your
Thank
humor.
you, teacher.
One last thing before you go, right, is that I'm conscious sometimes in these classes that I do all the talking, right? 99% of the talking. And I'm very happy if we change that around a bit and you guys spoke for 50% of the time, right? So I'll say this and try to emphasize it moving forward is interrupt, feel free to interrupt me. Say, excuse me, sir, I've got a question. Blah, 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 right? And so you're practicing speaking and I'm listening. And then I can hear your pronunciation and I could say, you didn't say that quite right. We would say it like that. Yeah. So feel free to do that and come the next class with your questions. Like think about your questions you've got and just anything, just ask me anything and I will attempt to answer your questions. Is that a deal?
Sure. Thank you.
Sure.
All right.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, teacher.
All right. See you all. Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
See you later. Thank you.
See you later.